To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
I have APD, which means my hearing is a little screwed up.
So when I went to get accommodations for my foreign language class, my teacher just said, I don't think you have a disorder. I think you just get nervous for tests. You don't need accommodations. As if she was the person diagnosing me. As if she was my doctor. To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
I have APD, which means...
Not that this is a contest, but I win. I'm a type 1 diabetic. And this is my insulin pump. It looks kind of like a phone. So, you would understand if, a teacher thought I was calling somebody, right? I would too, but this is the thing that they thought was a pager, not a phone, and they were upset. So I was in class just casually bolusing for my blood sugar, which was out of control. And this part here is usually attached to an inset, which is in my body. In, not on, in. When I say this teacher ripped this out of my hands and ripped it off my body and said, no texting during class. And then I said, that's not a phone. Yeah, I had to go home. And I got an apology from one of my least favorite teachers. But this, a phone, a pager even, a phone or a pager. No.
To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
I have cerebral palsy, a physical disability that mostly affects my legs. Back in 6th grade, I was in an IEP meeting with half of my teachers, my mom, and a couple of the school psychologists. And my remedial math teacher at the time said right in front of half of my teachers, me, and my mom, that I was not going to graduate high school with a regular high school diploma, and instead I was going to get a special GED. Mind you, I don't have any mental disabilities, only physical, so I'm pretty good when it comes to schoolwork. It's almost been 12, 13 years, and I'm about to graduate college with a bachelor's degree. So she was quite wrong on that.
To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
So I have albinism, so I'm legally blind, visually impaired, can't see, not good. But in school, all my books and tests and papers and everything had to be enlarged with big font so I could actually see it. And probably more than half my teachers would always forget to do that. They just wouldn't enlarge my stuff, so I would be staring at the paper, just face in it. And their excuse would be that, well, I have 100 other kids to teach, I just forgot. If you're a teacher and one of your students has special accommodations that they need so that they can succeed in the classroom, you don't really have an excuse. You should probably do what they need so that they can succeed. Yeah.
To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
This is a story about a kid who had ADD, ODD, and bipolar disorder, and a
female
bitch
dog
teacher named Mrs. May. Mrs. May, who was a guidance counselor at Berea High School in Berea, Ohio, had one job. Your job was to help students find out what their career choices can be after high school. Now, I was trying to find out my career choices. This orangutan titty having bitch
dog
decided to tell me, I think you'd be a great fit for fast food. Told her that I don't want anything to do with fast food, that I wanted to help people, so something in social work or nursing would better suit me. She said, I see in your file you have a 1.7 GPA, so school is not really an option, but something's telling me you know your way around a kitchen. The reason that her cross-eyed booty breath having ass said that is because this is what I used to look like when I was in high school. She didn't care to know that the reason my GPA was a 1.7 was because I was a 17-year-old kid working full-time to provide for my family. Or that I did make it to nursing school with a 3.8 GPA making dean's list. You don't even know that I'm...
Man, you got my fucking food.
Oh, my fault, bro. Yeah, $19.99 is your total.
Fuck that total.
This.
To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
My guidance counselor signed me up for sign language.
To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever...
So I have ADHD, dyslexia, and I have a small speech impediment. And so because I have those things, I get a special counselor, I get extra time on all my tests and everything. I get when I have to take my test, I can go to my counselor's room and make sure I have privacy and make sure that I'm getting help and all that stuff. And you cannot give me pop quizzes. That's in a contract that I sign as a student before I go to the high school. And so this teacher gives a pop quiz, and you can't do that without giving me at least 24 hours notice. And I say, oh, that's fine, because I'm already doing really well in the class. And I'm like, hey, can I go up to my counselor's office because I'm allowed to ask for that? And he said no. And I was like, why not? He's like, you're getting special treatment. Why should you be able to do that? And you will not believe what he says next. I will give you a part 2. Hold up.
To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
I have a neuromuscular disorder called dystonia, and it's a functional disorder, so things trigger it. In 10th grade, I had fitness at the end of the day, like the very end of the day, like 5th period. And we were doing this exercise this one day, pushing like a 25-pound weight across the floor, like on a towel. And about halfway through the class, this triggered my back, and my back really started to hurt, and I started to get like this, because that's what happens. And I told my teacher, and she was like, you're fine. It's almost the end of the day. So I was like, okay. So I kept going. A couple minutes later, I literally couldn't walk and I couldn't breathe because my rib and my hip were crushing my right lung. So I went over to my teacher and I was like, I need to call my mom. I need to go home now. I need my meds. I couldn't bring my meds to school because they were opiates. So, controlled substance. Meanwhile, I could barely even talk to her and tell her I needed help because I literally could not breathe. And she said, no, you can wait. Part 2's already up.
To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
So I'm colorblind, and in sophomore year, I took an art class because, easy A, come on. And we were doing a color comparison chart where we take like paint chip samples from the local hardware store and then trying to recreate the colors on the grid. And I told my teacher, I was like, I can't do this. I can't do color comparison. I'm colorblind. And she's like, oh, just try your best. And so I did. I turned in the homework assignment. I got it back, and it was a C+. So I asked her, I'm like, what's going on? Why do I have a C+ on this assignment? And she goes, well, you didn't match the colors correctly. Bitch, I'm fucking colorblind!
To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
So I have this ear condition where if I hear like a loud noise, my ears start to ring, and the louder the ring, the more my head hurts, and if it gets to a certain point, I pass out, and then that happened in class because it was too loud, and then I passed out, and I had a sub, and I also have panic attacks once they start ringing, and then I was having a panic attack, and my best friend already knows about like the panic attacks and ear ringing thing, so he told my sub, and the sub thought I was faking it, and I had my phone on me, and then my friend called my mom, and then my mom showed up pissed. I think I'm gonna have to make a part 2.
To anyone that has a disability or disorder, what's the worst thing a teacher's ever said about it?
Ooh, I've been waiting for this. So I have epilepsy, and I have pre-seizure warnings. We call it glitchy. So one time in math class, I was feeling glitchy, like I felt like I was gonna have a seizure. And I had a tendency like not to be in class, like I'd walk out and never come back. And we had a substitute teacher who didn't know my seizure protocol. My girlfriend Sarah, like she knew something was wrong. And I was like, I don't feel good. Can I go to the bathroom? The teacher looked at me, glared at me, and was like, no, you can stay here. You have a tendency to leave. I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna have a seizure, like I need to go. And like Sarah was like, she has epilepsy. Teacher's like, no, you can stay here. So I got mad, I looked at her and I was like, fuck you. I feel like I'm gonna have a fucking seizure and you're keeping me in class. I'm leaving. And she's like, if you're leaving, don't come back. I'm like, Sarah, come with me. She's like, no, Sarah, stay in the class. So I left, and then Sarah followed me, like, for part 2.